What's up, guys? It is Sam here, and today is episode 1 of the Honest Democratic ranking for the candidacy. So this is going to be mine. This is going to be our ranking, and it's going to be comprised of the analysis that I do in this video, along with 6 other parts, to get an understanding of what is happening in reality versus like what the media says is happening, right? Or looking at millions and millions of data points, what we're doing over here, versus something like The Economist's latest poll that had 1,500 people. Like millions and millions of people over here versus 1,500. And you'll get the point in a second as I dive deeper into this. But the parts that we're going to be getting into in later days are going to be the YouTube search volume, meaning how many searches for these characters. And who are these characters? Well, these characters are the 10 people that are going to be in the Democratic presidential debate coming up on September 12th. So I took then those 10 characters, and we're going to rank them based upon the amount of search volume on YouTube for the 12-month, 90-day, and 30-day. We're going to see who has the most amount of searches, and we're going to stack rank them in each one of those categories, 12-month, 3-month, and 1 month. And then we're going to say that the most recent 30 days, the previous month, is the most relevant data because it is most recent. And so we're going to give that weighting 25% for the 12-month, 25% for the 3-month, and 50% for the most recent 30 days because it is more relevant data. We're going to stack rank them. Then we're going to compare that to their website ranking on a couple different factors. We're gonna get into this a lot of the social. So that's gonna be Facebook, Twitter, and YouTube. So we're gonna take a look at their actual channels and see how their channels are growing, and we're gonna compare them on their growth rates and a different factor for each platform, whether that be Facebook, maybe that's the likes, versus Twitter with the number of tweets to get a gauge of the amount of work that they're actually putting into these platforms, assuming that they're not just putting bots out there or something. And on YouTube, the number of views. But the last category, this is the 7th factor in our honest rankings for these candidates, is donations. So we have 2 factors in there, and we're going to rank them in these categories and then take the average of that for their ranking. After we've compiled all of these individual rankings, right, we've got Google search volume. That's the one we're going to take a look at tonight. YouTube, website, all the social, and then donations. Once we have all of those rankings, then we're going to take an overall average from that and come up with the actual results to see who we predict is winning versus what the media says. And maybe we can do a prediction on who is going to be the first to drop out because I think that might be easier to predict at this point potentially, but let me know down below in the comments. Anyways, if this is your first time here, it's good to see you. And my name is Sam, and if you guys are returning, I'm glad you made it. So let's jump into YouTube search. And YouTube search, we actually added in another factor, and that other factor was media mentions. So I say media because this encompasses social platforms as well as mentions on the web. So we took all 10 of these Democratic hopefuls, right, that are going to be in the debate, and I'm going to go through their names here, and I might flip-flop between their first name or their last name, and I will probably get one of them wrong, so just bear with me, but we're going to work through this, and then we're going to talk about each one of the social mentions and the Google ranking. So this is on the you can think global basis, but it's just the search rankings within the U.S. And get into some of the intricacies of how we came up with this ranking. And then we're going to move forward. Why is like social mentions important? I think you can understand why social mentions is important. That's how many people are talking about them. That's kind of the relevance of like the sphere of influence people will have. So we'll dive into all of that. But first, let's start with how I actually started in this analysis. And what I did was I went into Google AdWords and took each one of these candidates. So we've got Pete, that mayor guy, Andrew Yang, Kamala Harris, Amy somebody, Bernie Sanders, Joe Biden, Cory Booker, Elizabeth Warren, Betty O'Rourke, and Julian Castro. So we've got all these people here, and you put in their names in individually in Google AdWords, and then you look at the most relevant other terms that you could use for ads within Google AdWords. And so I took the top 5 for each one of them and looked at the average search volume. So that was the first ranking we did when we're comparing some Google search, right? Because it's not just the search in one area. We can also understand what's going on with the distribution around these names, right? So if there's maybe like Yang 2020 or Joe Biden for president or something, these other terms, to get an idea of people are going to be looking for Andrew Yang, but they're also going to be looking probably for Andrew Yang for president or something, so these other terms. And when I did that, this is how the rankings started. We had Pete, the mayor dude, Andrew Yang, and Kamala Harris. That made the top 3. Okay, so the first step in our journey tonight is understanding the distribution around each one of these characters. And to start with, again, Peter, the mayor, I'm not sure how to say his last name, Andrew Yang, and Kamala Harris, those rounded out the top 3, with Pete having the most by like quite a large margin. And then Kamala Harris and Andrew Yang being relatively pretty close. Then what we did is we went on to the 12-month search volume. So how many times did people search for Joe Biden over the past 12 months? And then we are going to do the 90-day and the 30-day. But in the 12-month, the top, and I'm just going to go through the notable points here as we walk towards what the total Google ranking is. But the number, let's see, for the 12-month, the number 1 was Kamala Harris. So over the previous 12 months, out of all these people, Kamala Harris has had the most amount of search volume on Google, which was kind of interesting. Andrew Yang was number 7 on that ranking. So we have number 2 in the first category we looked at. In this one, he's number 7. So a big difference there. Betty O'Rourke is number 10 at this one, and she was number 9 in the first one. And Julian Castro, I have no idea who these people are, but Julian Castro like kind of flip-flopped. He was 10th and he went up to 9th. So Bernie Sanders was number 2, Joe Biden was number 3, Elizabeth Warren was number 4. So pretty interesting at the 12-month. Let's jump into the 3-month here and take a look at the previous 90 days. And to start with, Kamala Harris is also number 1 on the 90-day search volume. So that's interesting. So not only was she relevant within the past 12 months, but also within the previous 90 days. Number 2 was a tie between Joe Biden and Bernie Sanders. So this is the 90-day search volume for all of these people. And then we looked at who had the most amount of searches. So who is tied is Joe Biden and Bernie Sanders. We go up to number 4, which would be Elizabeth Warren. And at this point, Andrew Yang actually moved up 2 spots. So on the 12-month ranking, he was 7th. On the 90-day ranking, he's actually number 5. So he's moved up a few spots. Excuse me. Now, let's jump over to the 30-day. So this is the most relevant information that we have when it comes to the searches on Google. And in this category, we have a bunch of changes here. So number 1 in the past 30 days in terms of search volume was Bernie Sanders. So Bernie Sanders has been consistently performing in the top there. So that's expected. So he was number one. I mean, it could be in that area. So he was number one. Andrew Yang was number two. So that's interesting. He went from 7th to 5th to 2nd. From the 12-month to the 90-day in 30 days. So you get to see the trajectory of this growth, and relative to the other players on here, like, I can see that he is the only one that's really growing. Bernie Sanders grew slightly. Joe Biden's the same. Like, he's the only one that's been growing as time's been going on. So I would expect the trend to continue, you know? So when we take a look, though, so this is the more accurate representation, right? Because all those individual points were cool, but now we want to take a look at the overall, the total ranking for Google search when we combine the three of those things, the 12-month, the 3-month, and the 1-month, and we take 25% of the 12-month, 25% of the 3-month, and 50% of the 30-day. What that does is it represents that the 30-day is the most relevant information because it's the most recent. So that has more of an impact on that number than the 12-month one does, because that's less relevant just because it's older. And that's why we do 25% of 12-month, 25% of the 3-month, and 50% of the 30-day, because that's the most relevant information. So we did this throughout those three, and the number one candidate, according to our Google rankings, which we are talking about this evening, is Bernie Sanders. Bernie Sanders is the number one person over the period we just talked about. When you take the average of them, by a decent little margin. Number 2 is Kamala Harris. Number 3 is Andrew Yang. So that's pretty substantial. That he's ranked number 3 here, but he's not even on any of this polling data in the top 5 or 6. So that's kind of interesting. And you can go look at these on CNN or Real Clear Politics, and you'll see what I'm talking about. But when we look at Google, what we just walked through, and we looked at the keywords associated with his name, he was number 2. When we look at the actual search volume, he is, he's number 3. Now let's jump over to mentions here. Now this is mentions across multiple platforms, Twitter and Instagram, as well as YouTube and the web, I believe. Maybe one other category or social that I didn't recognize or whatever, so I didn't put a ton of relevance into remembering what it was. But now we're looking at the mentions across all these, and this is super relevant because you kind of get, if it was super in depth, which would be very cool, this is what you probably have to pay for, you could probably understand the demographics of who is mentioning these people, because if Twitter allows them to pull some sort of data from it, or using some type of AI, you could probably figure this out. Anyways, the total number of mentions is also, in a way, marketing for you, because they're putting themselves in front of anybody that they might have an influence on. So it's a way of almost having more free marketing, because you have other people talking about you. So when we look at the total number of mentions, Bernie Sanders is number 1. So we've got Bernie Sanders in number 1 on Google search. He's number 5 in the first category, which is the keywords associated with his name. He's number 5 there. He's number 1 on Google rankings, and he's number 1 on mentions. Number 2 is Joe Biden, but he's back by like a decent amount. Number 3 is Cory Booker, which is interesting. I know nothing about Cory Booker, other than he's got like a shaved head. Number 4 is Andrew Yang. So we have, again, we've got Andrew Yang in the top 5 here in every single one of these things that we've looked at, but it's not there for the polling data. It's kind of interesting. You can make your own conclusions of what, you know what I mean, is what's you should believe, but I'm just looking at the data. If you have any questions about where I get anything, I try to be very transparent, and look at it objectively to just understand what's going on. I don't understand the points necessarily of what any of these candidates are talking about, other than a tiny bit about Andrew Yang. But other than that, I'm just looking at it based on the data to try to understand what's actually going on, because I personally believe that getting a representative sample with the current way polling is done across the legacy media players, and how the DNC recognizes it, I don't think that's a tremendously valuable. By the way, the DNC is what puts the rules in place for people who want to become Democratic candidate for president. So they create these rules, right? And they only recognize certain polls. So I don't think any of these polls are necessarily super representative. So when you have something that's super not representative of what the country is saying, right? And that person goes on even when that's not what the actual country might be saying, right? Because we're looking at the data here. That's all we're doing. I'm not trying to like cherry pick. I never followed politics. Like, I knew nothing about politics at all. And to have it just come up and spark my curiosity to make this, and then this is just on Google. Wait till we take a look at YouTube tomorrow. So make sure you press that subscribe button so that you can catch all the next episodes. We have YouTube search, then we have the website we're taking a look at before we jump into a lot of social, and then finally we'll wrap everything back up with the donation portion of it and the money. That will be super interesting. That's factor number 7. So stay tuned. Press that subscribe button. Press that little bell notification so YouTube can notify you every time I post a new video. New videos, when will they be out? The objective is to have them out by 7:30 a.m. every morning, so you get to start your day with fucking this. Yeah, what could be better? Don't forget to jump over to Instagram and say what's up. If you have any other ideas or thoughts on where I can get data or interesting observations that we could take a look at, let me know down below in the comments, and we could do some cool stuff. I think I might take a look after this series and take a look more at the actual creative of some of these social platforms, so we kind of get an understanding of the psychology of what they're putting out. So if you want to watch any of that, make sure you press that subscribe button. If you want to check out any of the other videos that I've done on this type of analysis, jump back to the channel. I have around 20 videos on it. And don't forget to, at this point I'm just rambling, so thank you. Peace.